Hello, everybody. So today I wanted to look at the Australia's team or squad going to India. Been a lot of speculation about that, whether Australia want to take two spinners, perhaps even three, and what the lineup of the team might be. So Ashton Agar was put into the team in Sydney for the SCG test that's currently going on. They're towards the end of day 4. He is yet to take a wicket. He didn't bat. Is he a good enough spin bowler to take to India? And if not, do we take someone else as the second spinner? And if so, who? Um, so that's a bit of a question there. There's also some questions as to whether Matthew Renshaw, who came down with a particular virus that YouTube won't let me talk about, has recovered, but he didn't really have much of a bat. I think he scored about 4 runs. I'll just double check that quickly. He got, 5 not out from 11 balls. So, then the rain and all that sort of stuff. So he hasn't really proved himself. He hasn't really failed. I suppose at least he batted and he tried his best and didn't get out. So has Matt Renshaw gone ahead of Marcus Harris? So start off with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the certainties first. So I'm not going to go over every single position. So the 11 certainties are Australia's best 11. So the best 11, I'm just going to go over them. David Warner, Usman Khawaja, Marnus Labuschagne as some people say, Steve Smith, Travis Head, Cameron Green, Alex Carey, Pat Cummins, who's also probably going to be the captain, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, Nathan Lyon. So that's 11. Now, who is our number 12? I would say right now, unquestionably, Scott Boland. So we've got 12 there. Are we going to need any more than that? Well, really, there's only 2 reasons that we need more than them. And that is either number 1, injury, and number 2, if we want to go in with a different kind of team. So we do want to have some injury cover players. Now, we probably would ordinarily want a batsman, a bowler, maybe 2 types of bowlers if you're worrying about your spinner. And you might want to have an all-rounder. So who would be the batsman? And I think that would be Matt Renshaw. And so I'm putting him in as the batsman to cover. Do we want to have an all-rounder cover for Cameron Green? I actually think we do. So the choices for that... Oh, by the way, with the batsman cover, I think the thing with Renshaw that puts him above Harris is that he can play middle order or opener. I know Peter Handscomb was in this side for SCG as a backup, but I don't consider him really in the merits. Not as the first spare batsman, at least. If you want to take a second or a third, but I don't know if we want to have that many extras. So, 13th player for me, is Matt Renshaw. I know that's a bit of a skip. Unlucky for Harris, but I really, I don't have a lot of faith in Harris. Don't have a huge amount in Renshaw either, but he's at least been more versatile, batting in the middle order as well as opening. So that gives him that flexibility that we need. So because we might have to cover an opener, we might have to cover a middle order. Got one player covers both positions. So if anyone from 1 to 5 gets injured, or is ill or unavailable, he's there. So that's great. So do we want to have a specific cover for Cameron Green? And I think if you look at what happened in the SCG test, yes. We really struggled to know who our best 11 was without him. So who are the options? So essentially it's whether we want to have a spin bowling all-rounder, that being Ashton Agar, or if we want to have a pace bowling all-rounder, and our best option is Aaron Hardy. Now, I had said already that I think Aaron Hardy should have played in Sydney. He didn't, and we have Ashton Agar, and I think we're looking a lot worse because of it. We're looking like it's going to be a draw because he doesn't look like he's going to take a wicket. And who knows, maybe I'll be wrong. So I'm picking Aaron Hardy there. And that may not play a match, but he's there as a backup in case Cameron Green is unable to play. And Cameron Green might not even play in the first test, let alone any other tests. So the other option is that if we want to play an extra batsman, and I suppose some people are saying Peter Handscomb should be that. But I'm still, my gut is Aaron Hardy. I just think he needs to have a chance. Now, do we want to have a backup wicketkeeper? I don't think we need to. Dave Warner can keep wickets if needed. He's not that good, but, in a pinch. And I mean, if we did want to, we could do a Peter Handscomb. There is Josh Inglis. I don't think Josh Inglis is quite test level. Could pick or Matthew Wade, who probably is test level, but I don't know. I think he's been tried and tested and not really very good anymore. Tim Payne is back in first class matches. I think his time in Test cricket may have passed. I'm not sure. I mean, he wasn't that bad. He could be considered to come back. Um, he was actually quite good. He was Test captain when he left, and that was because of a scandal, not because of form. So, but I don't think. I mean, Tim Payne's not really in discussions at the moment. So Aaron Hardy is my 14th man. So again, I'm not expecting either of them to play. So Scott Boland, fast bowling reserve player. Matt Renshaw, batsman, reserve player. Aaron Hardy, all-rounder reserve. Do we need any more? Well, do we want a spin bowler reserve? I'd say maybe. Nathan Lyon is such an important player that I think we do. Now, I'm not saying that we're ever going to play two spin bowlers in the same side. We might not. But it is good to have a second spin there as an option. Now, Ashton Agar again comes into contention. I'm really not liking how he looks there. His record is just so bad, and we know that against India you have to have top level spinners or no spinners at all. Historically, Australia's pace bowlers do better. We have never really had very many good spin bowlers do well in India. It's and certainly, Nathan Lyon I would expect would do reasonably well in India, but I'm not expecting some Ashton Agar, Mitchell Swepson, any of them to do anything in India. I think they'll just be destroyed. And, so I don't mind Mitchell Swepson giving a go because he did have success in it for Australia for lesser formats. And I know there's a difference between Test and ODIs and T20s, but I think if you can adapt to the big game, to international cricket, you can adapt that to other forms of the game reasonably easily, particularly as a bowler. I think it's a bit harder for a batsman because they have to look at scoring rates. But as a bowler, it's not as big a change. I know that, there's different wide rules. So in Test cricket, of course, you can bowl a lot wider. You don't get called for wide as much. So there's a lot more allowance for those more erratic bowlers. But Test cricket, you have to bowl more overs, and there's a lot more protection for Test bowlers. You usually have more slips and all that sort of thing, and more field allowances. So certain kind of bowlers do benefit from that. Whether Adam Zampa or Mitchell Swepson fall into that category, I'm not sure. Nathan Lyon started out as a T20 specialist, and he ended up being a Test specialist. So I think that you can do that. Now, Adam Zampa's not in contention. I don't know why not, but he's not. There is another guy that's called Todd Murphy. Now, I know very little about this guy. He's got a good record and I already had a video about him. I think you're taking to India. As your backer, I'm not expecting him to play any matches, but as your backer. So that's player 15, I believe. So I've got Scott Boland there. Now, the question then is, do we take 16? And if so, who is the 16? Now, some people have suggested we take an extra batsman, and probably Peter Handscomb is the one. That would be if we're suggesting, well, things might happen and so forth, and Handscomb also can back up as a spare wicketkeeper. So there's validity in that. Ashton Agar, if you want to play your three spinners, maybe have a spin bowling all rounder. Depends on what kind of makeup they want. There is merit to picking Ashton Agar, so you have a bit of flexibility. And he is playing in Sydney, so there is that. But I'm still not taking him. There is also the option to go with another bowler now, a pace bowler. You do have Jai Richardson, and you have what's his name, Lance Morris, and you also have Michael Neser. I've got to add, Michael Neser did quite well. He shouldn't be completely discounted, but I just think in India might not really work for him. But look, I'm picking Lance Morris, and look, it is a tough decision. Jai Richardson's a great bowler. I don't know. I think he's a bit out of form at the moment, or is injured or something. But he's certainly in contention generally. We have a lot of fast bowlers coming through. Michael Neser does bat a bit. Whether that's enough batting to do well overseas in India, I don't know. Probably not. But he is a bit of a workhorse. So, and that's the problem with the Lance Morris, is that if you play someone like him, He might be a sort of quick and nasty bowler that just bowls 4 or 5 overs. But that has had success in India. We have had those sort of bowlers do well, those strike bowlers do well in India, particularly if we go in with that all-rounder and have 5 bowlers and then have people like Labuschagne, Smith and Head bowling some overs. Um, yeah, he can come in, smash a few big ones out there, and I can see that working in different conditions. We also have to remember, Indian spin bowlers do well in India. Australian spin bowlers fail in India consistently. Now, there have been some exceptions. Jason Frazier took a few wickets but went for a lot of runs. Steve O'Keefe did fairly well. Nathan Lyon has been okay in India. But we have a lot of failed spinners go to India, particularly these second-rate spinners that are not really quite test level. I'd put Ashton Agar in that second-rate spinner category. Now, if you're playing on a spinning pitch against players that are not good at playing against spin, you might play an Ashton Agar. He did fairly well in Sri Lanka. Not that well. He still averages 44 with the ball, which is awful. But, reasonably well. I mean, there's Glenn Maxwell did okay as a spinner too. But, yeah, and I don't see anything really unusual. I mean, unusual spinners, mystery spinners can be okay. But, yeah, I'm not putting Ashton Agar in the team, in the squad. But look, there are those names to be considered. So my 16 again, so I've got my 11. Scott Boland's number 12. Matt Renshaw's number 13. Aaron Hardy's number 14. Not necessarily in batting order. I am picking Top Murphy and I am picking Lance Morris. So I'm having 3 potential debuts out of the 16, and I think that's good. So Hardy, Morris, and Murphy. Potential debuts for all 3 of them, or 1 and 3, 2 of them, depending on how things go, because you do want to have flexibility in your team. And I can even see in a situation where we play both all-rounders. Yeah, and it's really hard to imagine Ashton Agar being part of that side. So, yeah, and look, the other thing is, so with this current SCG test looking like being a draw, we will need to draw or win one of the 4 matches in India in order to make sure we get to that World Test Championship final. It might be we can lose all 4. It will depend on other matches, but I believe we now have to draw 1 match. So we don't have to win any, we just have to draw 1. And, so that means that we may want to have a pack of batsmen and not that many bowlers. And maybe that means a Michael Neser makes it ahead of a Lance Morris, because we're not really going for the win, but you kind of have to go for a win or else you get rolled over, and matches in India often only last 3 days. So, yeah, I think if you go for the draw, it's not going to work. But look, it's going to be tough. And yeah, I certainly don't see Australia winning in India. I don't see us winning the series. I think we've only won 1 series in India in my lifetime. 2004, I believe. 1-2-1. Had that famous one where we were winning. We were 1-0 up and we're winning the second match, and then VVS Laxman came in and meant that nobody ever declares anymore. Or at least nobody ever enforces follow-ons anymore since then. So, I think it was at 2001, I think. Yeah, so we should have won that one, but VVS Laxman did wonders. We've got to remember Shane Warne did really badly in India, although, to be fair to Warney, he was always injured or recovering from injury when he was going to India. It was just bad timing every time he had a tour there. He actually did well in other countries in the subcontinent. But even still, other spinners have done badly in India, and it's just destroyed careers. I know a lot of Indians, they get confused and say, oh, you have to play 2 spinners. You don't. Our pace bowlers did really well in India. Glenn McGrath had a bowling average of 21. Jason Gillespie, 21. We've had other bowlers that have done really well. James Pattinson. I'd have to check with everybody else, but yeah, it's been pace, not spin, that has won us matches in India. Haven't won very many, but if we are going to win it, it's going to be with pace. And the other thing is, India do have decent pace bowlers now, but I'd still say ours are better. And yeah, we have some of the best pace bowlers in the world. Just the thought of getting rid of one of the top 4 or 5 bowlers in the world and replacing him with Ashton Agar? Are you crazy? And these pace bowlers probably bat better than him too. That's crazy. I mean, I think from Pat Cummins is ranked number one. Josh Hazelwood is like number one in ODIs or something, and he's like 12 in tests. Okay, so Mitchell Stark's a bit further down, but he's not far off him. And Scott Boland averages 12. And then you got Jai Richardson, he averages what, 17? Um, we got some really good pace bowlers, and then you got, spin bowler averages 44, but we want to play two spinners. Well, that's stupid. If we can get a second good spinner, good, play them. And that's why I'm putting Todd Murphy in the side. I'm putting a second spinner in. Otherwise, we may as well just bowl a Labuschagne, a Smith, a Head. They're decent spin bowlers. They're probably better spin bowlers than Ashton Agar anyway. Um, yeah, and I mean, even David Warner bowls a bit of spin. He's probably not as good as Ashton Agar, but he's, better than picking somebody who can't bowl just so that we got a second spinner. Yeah, that's it anyway. Like, I'm not completely sure of that team, and I'll have another comment once the squad is announced. Certainly, I'm sick of Indians telling me, "Oh, you've got to play two spinners." They've been saying that for 20 years, and they've been wrong for 20 years. You don't. You simply don't. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye bye now.